Hello and welcome to another episode of Character History. This episode I would like to speak about one of the original founding members of the Avengers. She can shrink down to the size of an insect and grow to the size of a skyscraper and can sting like no tomorrow. On this episode I'm speaking about Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. Janet was the daughter of the elderly scientist Vernon Van Dyne and was good friends with Dr. Hank Pym. However, when an experiment went haywire and an alien creature called Cosmosian killed her father, Janet was confused, angry and upset. She went to Pym to try and ask for help, and as Pym had feelings for her, and as a good friend to her father, he revealed his secret identity to her as he was Ant-Man. He promised to train her and perform the same experiment where it would give her similar powers to himself. Janet underwent a very cautious experiment involving Pym's very own creation, Pym particles. And as a result of the experiment, she was able to shrink down to insect-sized proportions and grow translucent wings. She was also given wrist blasters that would emit a sharp blast of energy when in her smaller form, and so she called them stingers. She then received her costume, the first of many I may add, and dubbed herself the Wasp. Working together, they managed to find and defeat the alien creature and banish it back to whence it came. They would have several adventures together before something big changed their lives. They were called by other heroes, Iron Man, Thor, and the Hulk, to help out on a mission that not one hero could accomplish on their own. And when the day was won, it was Janet who came up with the iconic name for the team, the Avengers. And also, she was a part of the team that found Captain America when he was frozen in ice. Of course, things between Janet and Hank would become a lot harder as the years went by, and with the Avengers too. Now, Hank had always loved Janet, but when it actually came to proposing his love for her, he could never actually do it. However, one day, after he had accidentally created one of the Avengers' greatest foes, Ultron, Hank had an accident in his lab where he was sprayed with experimental gases. This accident induced a severe case of schizophrenia. He had 2 breakdowns and started going by the name of Yellow Jacket, breaking into the Avengers mansion and stated that he had killed Hank Pym. This of course led them to attacking him, but he beat them and kidnapped Janet. Of course, Janet worked out that Hank was Yellow Jacket, and although vulnerable at the time, she beat him and asked him to marry her. The wedding took place, but she did feel bad for taking advantage of Hank's emotional state. Of course, the marriage was on rocky ground from the get-go. Hank was never really himself after his breakdowns and buried himself in distress and jealousy. He felt slightly inadequate compared to his own wife, as he thought he had failed as a scientist compared to how much money she had made. When a newer version of Ultron attacked him, he was brainwashed and forced to attack the Avengers, but was taken down by his own wife. Then Ultron kidnapped Janet and tried to put her mind into his robotic wife, Jocasta. However, once enough of her mind was in the robot, Jocasta sent a message to the Avengers revealing where they were, and she was saved by her teammates. Hank was reverted back to normal, but this was the beginning of the end for their marriage. During another battle, Hank blasted a surrendering opponent when he was told to stand down, therefore creating a totally unnecessary fight to take place. After it was over, Hank sought to get back in good with the Avengers by building a robot that only he could stop and prove that he could take it down himself. Janet wanted to know why he had done this act, but he simply turned around and hit her, then began to verbally abuse her and went on with his plan. But things went wrong when the robot started attacking the mansion and put innocents in danger. The Wasp took down the robot and Pym was kicked out of the Avengers and Janet filed for divorce. Over the following years, Janet would become a chair of the Avengers as she had become a worthy leader during her time with the team, and led the team into rediscovering Jean Grey, the X-Men member who was long believed dead. Of course, several events occurred which would test the leadership of the Wasp, including having members not take her orders, members die, and also battles that would leave her heavily injured. But the one event that tested her to the limit was when Baron Zemo and his Masters of Evil would break into the mansion and take down the heroes inside it. Janet got away and assembled a rescue team filled with under-trial Avengers, including her ex-husband Hank. He snapped out of his depressed state and helped save the team and beat the villains. Janet and Hank developed a better relationship after this, but one weekend she turned down his proposal to get back together. Now, before the House of M event, Janet and the Scarlet Witch were good friends. However, while slightly drunk, Janet reminded Wanda of her dead children, which a mystical entity had erased from Wanda's memory, causing Wanda to have a mental breakdown. During an attack on the Avengers mansion where several teammates went rogue and started to turn on each other, a deranged She-Hulk attacked and knocked the Wasp into a coma. Hank sat with her every day in the hospital, and when she was out of the coma, she and Hank promised to give it another go, retiring from the Avengers and going to live in Oxford. However, when they returned, they were no longer together and just decided to be good friends. Around this time, the Civil War event happened, and Janet and Hank were both on the side of pro-registration, and became the leader of the new Mighty Avengers. It was around this time that Hank gave her a refined growth serum that would allow her to grow to huge heights without any side effects. Of course, this was just about the start of the secret invasion. The Skrulls had invaded Earth and replaced many heroes with Skrull imposters. One of them was pretending to be Hank and had in fact given Janet a rogue formula. So once the Skrull Queen had died, the imposter Hank activated a device that made Janet grow to an enormous size but wouldn't stop, as she was becoming a biobomb. She tried to grab as many Skrulls as she could, and Thor transported her to another dimension to avoid the huge cost of death. And Thor promised to avenge the death of Janet, and when Hank was rescued from the Skrull prison, he was distraught. In tribute to his ex-wife, he donned a new costume and began calling himself the Wasp, and stated that she was the greatest hero that he had ever worked with. The Wasp did not return until the 2010-2012 run of Avengers, when a distress signal being echoed from the microverse was picked up by the Avengers. So Captain America, Thor, Iron Man and Giant Man, or Hank Pym, travelled to the other dimension and found Janet alive and kicking and fighting off an evil dictator. Their reaction was one of astonishment and amazement, and Janet was unbelievably happy to see them. After defeating the villain and liberating the microverse, they return with Janet back to the normal universe. Since then, Janet's become a part of the Uncanny Avengers, or part of the Avengers Unity Squad. After the events of Avengers vs X-Men, the relationship between mutants and humans had become strained. Janet was brought in at first to help the team have a good image within the public eye and the social media, but when the Apocalypse twins wrought havoc, she was forced to get back into stinging the bad guys. She managed to take down the undead Banshee and the Sentry, as they were two of the twins' four horsemen, and managed to save a number of her teammates. However, when the Scarlet Witch was seemingly killed by Rogue, Rogue killed by the Grim Reaper, and Wonder Man sacrificing himself, a new world was created due to the Scarlet Witch, where mutants were the dominant species and the Wasp was the last human alive. Havoc and Janet had become husband and wife in this reality and had had a daughter. But when they wanted to take down the twins, Kang the Conqueror came to help them by allowing them to travel back in time to their previous selves. Minds only though, as their bodies would stay in the future. And as a precaution, he took their daughter to a pocket dimension where she would be safe from the effects of time travel. Stopping the unnecessary deaths of the Scarlet Witch and Rogue, she managed to stop the Apocalypse twins, but only gave Kang exactly what he wanted, the power of a celestial being. Janet stopped as many of Kang's alternate team of heroes, but when she returned, Havoc and their daughter were nowhere to be found, as Kang had tried to use their daughter as leverage. Havoc would not fall for it though, and Kang was defeated, Havoc was horribly burned, and any hopes of getting their daughter back were gone. Now, Wasp has appeared in many other versions within the Marvel Universe, and within contemporary culture she has appeared in many TV shows, dating back from the 90s, and with her most popular incarnation coming in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. The Wasp is one of my favourite characters just because she is such a fun and happy-go-loving character, and the fact that you can actually laugh with her while you're reading the story. And with the Ant-Man movie on the way, and Evangeline Lilly playing Hope Van Dyne, there is obvious hope that she will don the costume of the Wasp. I hope the Ant-Man movie inspires more people to investigate the history of the Wasp. So that was the history of Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next character history. See you folks!